I'd like to call this meeting of the Stanley County Board of Commissioners to order. Welcome to everyone. I know we've got several people here for various public hearings over in our other viewing room, I'll call it. I don't know what else to call it. But I'll go ahead and ask Commissioner Allman to ask the invocation and pledge of allegiance.
Let's pray. Father God, thank you for this time that we have together to come and do the county's business. Father, I lift up my fellow commissioners. I pray that you give us minds to discern tonight and make good decisions that will glorify you. I pray for our citizens, lift up our first responders and all our county employees. And I lift up our president and governor and all our leaders. God, I ask you bless them and help us to get through this tough time. In Jesus' name I pray, amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Commissioner Allman. Any additions or adjustments to the agenda?
Closed session. That one budget amendment.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Morgan.
need to add on item K to our consent agenda for the one-time supplement for LIP.
Commissioner Morgan's made a motion to add an additional item that you should have in front of you, item K, to the consent agenda. Is there a second? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed, no.
That should be L.
Motion. Oh. There's an L on the back, sorry. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed, no. Motion carries 7-0. Item number 1 is going to be a public hearing on economic development. Presenter, Ms. Louder.
Thank you, Chairman. Good evening, members of the board. Thank you for allowing me to come before you this evening and request your support of a business development grant. This grant request is on behalf of a manufacturer of medical and other protective covers that is located in the city of Albemarle. The project will generate approximately $2.9 million in new taxable investment and create 15 new full-time jobs. Requesting a business development grant of 60% for 5 years. This recommendation is consistent with previous grant awards. The city of Albemarle will be partnering with us on this grant and approved a grant at this level at last Monday's meeting. The 60% will be a grant on the taxes paid only on the new taxable investment, not their existing other properties. I'll be happy to answer any questions you have about the project.
Are there any questions from commissioners?
I do have one, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Louder, what is the 15 new jobs? Did they give you average pay for those particular jobs?
The average salaries will range from $12 to $22 per hour, and that is at or slightly above our existing county average. They'll vary from warehouse jobs to fabricators.
Any other questions? If not, I'll declare the public hearing open. Is there anybody to speak for or against the economic incentive grant? No?
They're all for the next one.
All right. With no persons coming forward, I'll declare the public hearing closed. What's the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we approve a property tax incentive grant of 60% for a 5-year period associated with the minimum investment of $2.9 million, which will result in 15 new jobs.
Thank you. A motion by Commissioner Lawhon and a second by Commissioner Morgan. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no. Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item number 2 on tonight's agenda is a rezoning request from a Mr. Reese Gibson. Presenter is Mr. Bob Remsburg.
All right. Well, good evening, Commissioners. Good to see you this evening. You have before you a case. We have it numbered as ZA 20-03, Reese Gibson requesting to rezone 4 parcels containing 38.29 or 37.99, I'll get it right one way, acres at the corner of River Road and Rennie Ford Road from RA residential to R20 residential. These are 4 parcels. You can see them here at the corner of River Road and Rennie Ford. They are within our jurisdiction. You can see Stanfield's RA jurisdiction just off to the east on this slide, and I'll get you a larger view in just a second. The lots adjoining this property are all currently zoned RA. One nearby section, in fact, I'll go ahead and get to that down here, just south of it is zoned R20. The reason to rezone is to R20 would allow Mr. Gibson to get smaller lot sizes in a proposed subdivision based on whether the land will perk or not. He will design the subdivision and determine lot sizes based on a soil survey, which was underway at the time that I prepared, or Dr. Ekman prepared this memo. That has since been completed. I've been told that soil scientist Larry Thompson has examined the soils, and they are actually in better condition than the soils that were found for Stanfield Ridge when that property was developed, I think, back in 2008. Minimum lot sizes in the RA district is 30,000 square feet, whereas for the R20 district is down to as few as 15,000 square feet. Mr. Gibson has indicated that he plans to construct a subdivision with up to about 50 lots or so on this, and each one would exceed 25,000 square feet or so. He doesn't want to have very small lots on this, but fairly large, but smaller than would be allowed in the RA district. Property across River Road, as you may recall, has already been zoned. That's the parcel to the north. That's owned by Larry Honeycutt, and Terry Whitley is helping to develop that property. Across the street on Rennie Ford Road, there are 10 lots. You can see them already shown on GIS there that were created already by Steve Helms for Helms Builders to construct homes that will actually have direct access onto Rennie Ford Road from those parcels. These parcels are located in a growth area per the 2010 Stanley County Land Use Plan, and you've got the traffic data there that shows about 550 vehicles currently per day on River Road and topping 3,000 vehicles per day on Rennie Ford Road. And of course, that area has grown a bit, and you'll continue to see those numbers increase, especially I think on Rennie Ford Road. But the River Road section heading back to Cabarrus County has kind of gotten to be a popular cut through, I think, for people in the south or the Unionville area. They're heading to Locust. Additional lots would fit into the goal stated in the land use plan that development be concentrated to provide for good use of available infrastructure. This doesn't have sewer service, but it does have water service available to it provided by the town of Stanfield. Of course, that county sells the water to Stanfield to be used for that purpose. Let's see, other key points. Let's see, well, I'll go back up. You can see currently it's largely wooded. Some field area close to both River Road and Rennie Ford Road. And I'll jump down. I've got some pictures. There's a couple of pictures of Stanfield Ridge homes that Mr. Gibson has built over the last few years. So you get the idea of the level of homes that he's traditionally put in there. And he has announced that that's kind of the same price range, I think, that he wants to do at this new development as well. The planning board reviewed this at their meeting back in, let's see, was it March, I guess? I'm going to lose track with we delayed this just a little bit. And there were several neighbors, and I think they're here tonight as well, to express concerns. And so they actually recommended, the planning board ended up recommending that the project be denied based on the reduction in lot size. The point was the other developments nearby were already 30,000 square foot lots, and they were able to do that. And so the concern was, well, why have 30,000 square foot lots on this development and then this new development come in with less? There was concern about septic systems on small lots. That's obviously a key thing, whether that soil will support that or not. Existing adjacent, as I said, adjacent approved developments keeping 30,000 square foot plus lots. The neighbors had expressed concerns over traffic, school overcrowding at Stanfield, tax burden on the county, of residential development, and risk of additional crime. And I'll give you one more slide here that gives you an idea of the RA versus R20 as far as the zoning ordinance is concerned. 30,000 square foot minimum lot size versus 15,000 square foot. That's with water provided. Front setbacks 50 feet in RA, 40 feet in R20, sides 15 in RA, 12 in R20, rears 40 versus rear 35 in R20. Average lot width is supposed to be 100 feet in RA, whereas average lot width can be reduced to 80 feet in R20. So that kind of gives you a background there. And the rest of the information I provided in a memo, I hope that is sufficient. But if there are any questions, I'll be glad to address them.
Any questions from commissioners at this time?
I do have a question. Mr. Remsburg,
Yes.
the previous subdivision that Mr. Gibson developed,
Right.
what was it registered as?
Okay, like this one, it was originally an RA zoned area, and back in 2007 or 8, when that came up, it was rezoned to R20 to allow for smaller lot sizes.
What's our land use plan? Does it call for this type development?
In a area that is potential for or identified as a growth area, and if infrastructure is available, then the recommendation is to look toward smaller lot sizes. The advantage, of course, is especially if you can get the value out of the lots, tax value, then of course concentrating your development so you don't have to put any great additional cost into extending infrastructure. Now again, it's Stanfield Water, and the developer in this case is going to put the infrastructure in, and you've already got water lines on River Road and Rennie Ford Road, so he has access both ways. So it's really not an expense to, in this case, the town of Stanfield to expand the infrastructure, but in an overall zoning planning sort of world, if you can concentrate your development where you have resources such as infrastructure, then your tax dollars, it makes more sense tax-wise. You get more bang for your buck that way for land use.
These lots, though, are septic tank lots.
They are septic tank lots, so there is no sewer available. So
And how often do we approve rezoning to downsize for a septic tank lot?
well, obviously it was done in Stanfield Ridge. That's a good question. I don't know that I have an answer for kind of how often, but it has been done. We have also refused some. I could think of one up on Ridgecrest Road, Purser Drive. It has been developed since then with 30,000 square foot lots, but there was a request to downsize those lots, and that was refused. That was about 3 years ago.
Why would we approve one and disapprove another?
Well, that case, there were a sizable opposition from some people in the Ridgecrest community to increase density. I think you may find that the case tonight as well, when the neighbors may speak. I don't know. They may have changed their mind on it, but there were some concerns raised at the planning board meeting. for the same sort of thing, increased density.
If I may, reply to that, mentioned three things: school overcrowding,
Right.
burden, risk of additional crime. What's the difference in the number of? I usually have a loud mouth until we turn it on. What is the estimated difference in the number of houses between the plan that Mr. Reese has asked to do and what we would like him to do if we went with a 30,000 square foot tenant? How many homes are we talking different?
Good math problem, and I haven't worked it out, but we can basically do it. 'Cause
Give me a vague approximation.
yeah, 30, so we got a little less than 40 acres, 30,000 square feet. So you're dealing with 35, 40 lots versus 50 lots, 50, 52 lots, I think. I think you
The
got an
argument might
email.
be
with
made that there may be 20 more families or 20 more homeowners.
Yeah, 10 to 20 more.
10 to 20, and that's going to is Stanfield in fear of having 10 people run it broke, overburden its schools, and send its crime skyrocketing? If so, we need to reevaluate building homes anywhere in the county, I would think.
Well, that's going to be a question, obviously, for the neighbors to address.
The homes he built look beautiful. Yeah. I may have my concerns, but those concerns weren't on my list of concerns. I'd be interested to see how they come up.
Well, I think the challenge you always face, whether it be planning board or board of commissioners with that, is is that actual fact, is that factual? Is there anything to support that?
Right.
And it is sometimes hard to come up with numbers to support that.
And Mr. Reese, I don't know the gentleman, never met him. I've heard great things about him as a builder and developer. He built a previous development, he said about a half mile down the road,
Correct,
that is zoned R20. It was RA, he had it rezoned
correct.
approximately 13 years ago-ish? You said 2007,
Right,
2008?
2007 or 8, right.
How long has he owned this land here?
And he is here tonight, so he may be able to answer that question exactly, but I'm pretty sure he bought all of this around that same time period.
So
He
from his perspective,
he lives on River Road.
I understand that we have a land use plan in play that was not in play the first time he came up with this request.
Basically true. The catch is the 2010 land use plan was really a rewrite and an update of the 2002 land use plan, so it wasn't a whole lot of change between the two.
There's a good chance there was nothing changed in relation to that anyway.
And I think Mr. Sandy's here tonight. He may be able to answer that better than I could. So
If that's the case,
but
then
that's
this
true.
gentleman bought some land 12 years ago, developed it to what the county seems to say is a wonderful quality perspective. People are happy, and now he just wants to do the same thing he did
Right.
last time.
And I'll just say that when the planning staff reviewed this, then we actually recommended to the planning board that it be approved as a staff. But then the planning board listened to the neighbors and listened to Mr. Gibson and decided, nope, we don't think that should be the case. So that was yeah. Obviously, you don't have to, the planning board is simply an advisory board. And
I don't know the gentleman, so I thought-
you
all I
choose,
asked, all I could.
you get to choose.
Mr. Remsburg, what
Yes.
was the vote of the planning board?
It was 7-0 to deny. So it was a unanimous vote to deny.
I got two questions.
Sure.
First question, the subdivision that's R20 that was rezoned, what are the lot sizes in it?
They are all, I know they all exceed 20,000 square feet. I think many of them are 22, 23, somewhere in that number. Yeah.
My second question is because the way it reads is basically he anticipates most lots to exceed 25. So technically he could build build them at 18,000 if we approve this right now and throw up.
Right. Keep in mind, because I think many of you, or maybe all of you, received a proposed plan, which looks pretty good, but all we're doing is doing a rezoning. So you're right, we're rezoning this. That would allow down to 15,000 square feet. The planning board, the way the ordinance is set up, has the authority to approve the subdivision. So, or the design of a subdivision. So in the future, Mr. Gibson will have to come back to the planning board with a layout, literally the streets and the lot sizes and all that, to the planning board and say, is this okay? And the planning board has the right to say, yep, that's great, or no, absolutely not, you need to add a street here, you need to increase the lot sizes, or whatever. You really can't design a subdivision, of course, till you have all the soil sciences side of things done, because you don't know where to cut those lots. I always advise folks when they come into the office, do your soil work first before you try to subdivide a property, even if it's a minor subdivision or major subdivision, because that you end up moving lines otherwise. So always do that first. So he's getting that data together. So eventually, next few months, he'll potentially be bringing that plan, once it's together, back to the planning board for review and approval. So there's still that step that would have to be done. Planning board has that
One of our
authority.
suspected fears, I don't know why, but it is one that seems to be that, well, if we, now, keep in mind, he had the option to build 15,000 square foot parcels the first time too, didn't he? He just.
On the
He did.
Stanfield
He
Ridge.
built 22 to 23,000 square foot
Correct.
houses. And he said he wants to do that this time. There's some fear that he's gonna turn around and decide to build single wides as best he could.
Right.
In that space. I don't see, based on his historical building, that there's any reason to think the man would do that.
Right.
And if we do agree to rezone this, the fear is, well, he can go back and just make him 15,000 square feet, but if what you just
Right.
educated me on is correct, he still has to pass the planning board regardless.
That's right. He's got to bring a plan back to the
So the
planning
planning
board.
board's gonna have to pass it, and they're not gonna pass something that's 15,000
That's
square
right.
feet and tiny and, okay.
I would, obviously that's.
That's up to the planning board.
That's up to the
but,
planning
yeah.
board. I can't speak for him, but yes, you have that right.
Understood.
Are they ready?
Okay.
Chairman, I have one more question.
All right, go ahead, Commissioner Lawhon.
The other two developers,
Yes.
did either of those developers talk to the zoning department about getting smaller lots?
No, neither Mr. Helms nor Mr. Whitley approached us about reducing lot sizes. They were good with the 30,000.
I just got one more.
Sure.
One more question.
Mr. Morgan?
As far as sewer goes, with R20, I mean, is R20, would we normally like to have sewer when we rezone to R20? And in the past, I know you said in the past we've done it and there's one, but for the majority of our R20, do we rezone where we have sewer and leave everything else RA typically?
I guess the short answer is the preference would be yes, you would have sewer to get it down to R20, or certainly to a 15,000 or so square foot lot, 15 to 20,000 square foot lot. I can't really speak for Mr. Rozelle from the environmental health side of things exactly, but I've talked to him a little about this, and he said there's no way you're going to be able to get really small lots on this property. Now, again, he's not gone out and done the soil tests and that sort of thing, but based on experience, and he did get involved, of course, with the project across the street on Mr. Whitley's property quite a bit, and those 30,000 square foot lots. And every lot over there, I think, except maybe one, was able to perk with no problem. And so that was, and of course, those are 30,000 square foot lots. Remember, and I think you probably all know this, but when you're doing septic, you got to have not only the septic system, but also a repair area. So that right there, if you're going to get 325 feet or whatever it is of line, and I'm not, that's Mr. Rozelle's problem. But when you get those lines in there, you only have so much space. You know, it's going to require a fair amount of space to work with. So that's going to limit the size of the lots. Long answer to a short question. Sorry about that.
No other questions from commissioners? Go ahead, Commissioner Barbie.
My question is that we drop this back to the 15,000 or the R20 rating. Would this open up a can of worms with the other developers, and they might come back and want to reduce their lot size too? And that will overtax the area, and a lot of well water contamination for those that aren't on water, because there'd be many sewer systems or septic tank systems put in. So, you know, I personally am on a 3/4 acre lot myself, and it's awful small. And if I ever have to have any work done on my septic tank, it's going to be a tough place to put it, you know. But I'm on a well also, so my problem would be if we do just drop down to the smaller lot size, and we're going to create problems, more headaches for other developments that's going to come in and request this.
If I may, good point, good question. And I'll just say for the Mr. Helms's parcels are already platted, and that's done. So they all exceed 30,000 square feet. That's not going to change. And part of the Mr. Whitley's development across River Road has been recorded. It's not showing up on GIS here yet, but it has been recorded. The other portions are plowed in, literally. I think they've got the cul-de-sacs and so on already put in, and I think some of the water infrastructure is already put in place on those lots. So I think he's pretty much locked in. Whereas now there is one other parcel, and it's direct diagonally across from Mr. Gibson's land there, across the intersection. Two things are planned there. The larger parcel is Mr. Helms's property as well, and he does plan to develop that in the future at some point. Excuse me. Not sure when that'll happen, but he's probably going to concentrate on this other stuff first. The little triangle there, interestingly, is a proposed location for a branch for the West Stanley Fire Department. So there'll be a substation for the fire department will be located there. So just a little further information on what's happening at that intersection.
Thank you. Anything else, Commissioner Barbie?
Yeah, that's awesome.
All right. Any other questions? Declare the public hearing open. Anybody to speak for or against? Tyler, I don't have a list of names, so if you've just got them for record, that's all I was worried about.
Well, now, thank you for coming out. I hated to ask y'all to come out for this coronavirus. It's got us all upset. My kids and grandchildren as well. But anyway, I hope the good Lord see fit the other people too that be over with. These lots here, it's average. If you look on what the email tell you, it's 29,925, almost 30,000 feet. And I'm sure the average will be more than 830, because I know I won't get them all. But my primary reason for doing this, that and it cost me a lot more money. None of my lots will have no driveways on them. If you look at your, have all of you got a copy of what the email tell you? I've got copies here, if you want a copy.
It wasn't in our packet, but we all got it in our emails, and look, I know I looked at it, so.
Well, I'll come up real close, not that close. You can pass them around. I wish you would look
think-
at them.
Okay.
That way you know what I'm talking about. I'm not the best speaker anyway. Thanks, Bob. The traffic on River Road, you know, it changes right there at the intersection to 55 miles an hour. And like one of you said at the beginning, I don't want no cars backing out on any Port Road or River Road, and it won't have to. And all of them will be single driveway in the subdivision. And being said, by me doing that, it cost me much more putting roads inside in water line 2 versus doing it on the road. If I had done it on the road, the cost would be much less. But the DOT will not let you have driveways between 2 houses, and I didn't want that. I take pride in what I do. Every subdivision, Scott Eaford can tell you that, Bob, anybody in Union County or wherever you go, on what I do. Now, these lots, the width of them and the seed 80, that'd be 100 feet minimum. Some of them will be acre, some will be maybe over. There won't be hardly any in there less than about 2/3 of an acre. And I will write it down and certify it tonight or anytime. It won't be no 1,500-foot lot, and won't be any small lots. But it will give me ability to absorb the cost of putting this road in. And you see, coming in, it's a well-designed neighborhood, and possibility I'm put an access road coming out on River Road so people can get out and fire trucks can get in and out. But I don't want anybody backing out or turning around. And 2 houses on 1 driveway, they'd have to have a turnaround in the front yard. And I'm hoping all these houses will be facing River Road and facing Renford Road for the design, what it looks like. And I think they will be. And if you're familiar with 10 Ridge, every one of the houses is pretty desirable. And I have my standards on foundation that can't be on the ground, that have overhang. I'm pretty stiff on what's being built. I don't ever build a house that I wouldn't live in myself. And I hope y'all can approve it. I know I don't need the money. I give her a lot away. I'm not discussed that tonight. I lost 2 wives for council, and I give a lot to council fund, Christian minister, and other places too. And I do it to keep me alive. I am 80 years old. You probably look at me, why are you doing it for 80 years old? Well, if I don't stay busy, I won't live. But yeah, I want something really nice. And can you all see those figures at the top right-hand corner? On R20, you can get 77 lots, not 52, because you know you can't do that. I'll be lucky to get 45, 47 lots, and make the average on a lot be way beyond like R30. They'll probably be 32 or 3,300 feet. But my goal is to have a nice neighborhood and a safe neighborhood, and something that people would be proud to live in. And I've had a lot of comments on this layout that locals really likes it. Scott Eaford said a beautiful neighborhood, and that's what I want to do. And I'm trying to make the neighbors happy. I know, I understand they don't want no more houses down here, and I can't blame them for that. But they did tell me on the planning department if I didn't do it, somebody else would do it. And as far as Stephen Hams, I talked to him about it. He loves it, the builder. And Tim Whitby and Larry Honeycutt likes it. They've seen it. And they have no objection of this here. And it's up to you guys to, I want to make y'all happy too. Anything else you need to ask me?
Thank you, Mr. Gibson. Are there any questions for Mr. Gibson as the property owner while he's in here?
I do have one, Mr. Chairman. exit or entrance way that I see on this map, it looks like it's from Rennie Ford Road,
Yes, sir.
and there's not an exit on River Road.
Well, it will be.
So you're planning to put an exit on River Road?
Yes, sir. I'm doing that for safety. Don't you think I'm out in an intersection in Bella and having so many driveways? I just don't like looks of it. I'm not any other builder. I just not. I'm not downside. I'm not bragging on this. It's not my thing to do, and I won't do it. But I'm just tell you what mine would look like.
The second driveway is on that, is that blue, that purple dot coming out on River Road?
Yeah, come back down there, huh? I think it needs it, but I think it'd be a safety zone to have two driveways, and the looks of the neighborhood would be much prettier than two houses on one driveway. I'm not kicking that. Now, I really don't want to say that, because the people that build on houses, I didn't know Steve Ham, but he was great with it, and I understand because it cost him be a whole lot less than mine. You know that. Mine would be, to put this in, it cost me twice as much. And now, R30, if I wanted to place driveways on River Road in Reniford, I could do it and have two houses per driveway. But they won't have the same concept, and I don't want that.
Any other questions for Ms. Gibson? Mr. Gibson, sorry. Mr. Gibson, we appreciate you coming in tonight.
I appreciate y'all
If
being
another
here.
question comes up, are you
I'll be right
guys
there. I'll be
hanging
right
out just a few
down.
minutes? Okay.
Well, I always got my phone number. You can call me anytime. I've been blessed with good health and lost and good children too, both sides. But anyway, I appreciate you coming out here and keep your distance, stay safe. That's the main thing. Thanks
Thank
a
you.
lot.
Oh, you're welcome. You can go right back in there so you can listen to the other comments. In case you want to come back. Planning board would likely require a second driveway. For safety, fire access. Just give me your name to get up there.
Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Ernest Alexander. I live at 12051 Reniford Road. I've lived there for 12 years. You've heard our concerns that we presented to the planning board about the traffic, school overcrowding. Also would like to address the water runoff, the sewer, the number of houses there. Reniford Road has become a popular cut through from 218 coming to 2427 to avoid 601 by the big trucks because of construction on 601 and also because State Highway Patrol has been enforcing the big truck traffic over there. So we're seeing an increase in that. That road hasn't been maintained, and I'm sure the state doesn't really have any plans to do anything as far as upgrades. It's been probably 5 or 6 years since they came in and worked on the road. I mean, we can't even get the grass cut over there. Also, as far as water drain off, several months ago, we had to close River Road between Rennie Ford and Stanfield and also Pope Ford Road because of flooding that washed the road out. These hard surfaces that you're going to put with the extra housing, if you change this, it's going to cause more water runoff in that direction. Every time somebody washes dishes, washes clothes, flushes a toilet, you have this septic tank. And it appears to me, from what I can understand, it's hard to hear in there, but it sounds like that if these lots are that small, that the pretty much leach fields are going to be most of the yard. So I can't imagine what that would be like. My daughter's 12 years old. She exited the 6th grade last year, Stanfield. That's when Oakboro had dumped there. They had to bring trailers in. They had no room. I can't imagine the people that are moving in these size houses are going to be just retired mom and pop people. They're going to have kids. This is going to overcrowd your schools. Locust is overcrowded. As far as I know, there's no plans to build a new school in that area. Was it Richfield, I believe, that they're talking about reopening? Is that right, Richfield? Ridgecrest. But those are our concerns. We hear about how pretty these houses are. It doesn't matter if it's a mobile home or a mansion, you're still going to have the same problems. I just don't think it's designed environmentally to have that many lots to come into that area. Yesterday afternoon, Mr. Gibson came by my house and we talked. We're standing out in the front yard. This was Mother's Day on Sunday afternoon, and we had to quit talking for the traffic. It got so loud. Pickup trucks with diesel smoke rolling, kids stopping at the stop signs, squealing tires. I mean, they're building houses directly across the street, yesterday morning at 8 o'clock. But it's definitely grown, and I just don't see how that area is going to sustain that many houses if you change. I don't know why. There's nothing good to come out of that for the change. You may get a few more tax dollars, but the impact, the negative impact, is going to be a lot greater than what the gain is going to be. I ask you that you support the planning board's decision. These are people that you trusted to advise you. I ask that you support their decision and give them your support. And I'm asking you to deny this rezoning application. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Alexander. Any questions for Mr. Alexander while he's in here?
I do have a question. He's trying to get it rezoned to R20 from RA. If it were RA, are you still going to be upset that new houses are going to be built?
Yes and no. We moved, to qualify this, I'm retired from Charlotte Police Department. I've been in law enforcement 40 years. I moved to Stanley County for a reason. That's following us. I'll be upset, but I know it's inevitable to have development. You can't survive if you don't have development. You have people that have lived here all their life. They have families. Families don't want to move away from families sometimes, so they're going to live in the area. Yeah, there's going to be development. It was designed as RA for a reason. I don't see any reason to change it. I just don't see any purpose in it. The only benefit that I can tell is just a monetary gain.
Anything else? All right, we appreciate you coming
Yes,
out
sir.
tonight.
Thank you.
Andy, I have one, he's not
We
here.
got one
Oh,
more gentleman that's coming to speak.
okay.
Hello, gentlemen, ladies. Good evening. My name's Andy Turner. I am a homeowner on Reedy Ford Road. I am actually adjacent to Stanley Farms. I was not able to attend the previous hearing here, but just wanted to bring my concerns. I see those questions that have been brought forth already, and I echo the same concerns. Those being traffic, the school system, all the septic tanks. I'm thinking already right beside of us, 34 septic tanks. And then just across the road from River, another 45 septic tanks. And then across Reese Ford, another additional 10 septic tanks. And then already going toward Midland there on River Road is going to be, what, another 7 septic tanks. So I just think, man, like with the runoff, it's already been the concern that's been expressed. I echo the same. I also think one thing that comes to mind is, boy, that's going to be a busy intersection. I'm thinking 79 homes. You may average 2 vehicles per home. We're talking 158 additional vehicles, a fire department on one corner. I do wonder about the school system as well. Can it support it? What does it mean for the town of Stanfield? I have a concern, would we be annexed in once these housing developments are complete? Those are the concerns I have, and I would too request that, you consider it from all perspectives, and my request is to deny it.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Turner?
I have one for him.
All right.
How long have you lived in the county, sir?
7 years
And you moved here from where?
from Mint Hill. And we experienced the same there, where the growth just, boy, it exploded. That's what led us here, actually. My daughter's in Carolina Christian School. That's one other reason that brought us to where we are. But I know from firsthand experience, having watched Mint Hill, I was Mint Hill for 15 years. And man, did it explode the same way. Traffic, the crime, the whole bit. I know they mostly have county water and septic there, or sewer system, but boy, yeah, that exploded, and it was so much crowding. I know there's additional crime that we would see and hear reported, so but yeah, I've been here 7 years.
Anything else?
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to ask the same question. If it remains RA, residential agriculture, do you object to a subdivision being there?
I don't know if I object, but I still would have the same concerns. There'll still be traffic, right? Maybe not as many, but there'll still be septic tanks and vehicles, kids for school. Yes, it does concern me. Either way. R20 or RA, either one. Yes. Sure. Thank you guys for listening.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Is that everybody, Mr. Lucas?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
can we get Bob back up just a minute so I can
Yeah,
ask
let
him
me
a question?
close the public hearing first.
Matthew, you're good.
All right. No other people to speak. I'll declare the public hearing closed. Are there any questions from commissioners? I think there was one from Mr. Furr for Mr. Remsburg.
Yes, sir. When the planning board denied this, did I catch you just a minute ago say that if it had had that second exit, that you would have approved it?
What I said a minute ago was the planning board would likely require that when they reviewed it. Again, keep in mind I guess two things. One, the plan that you've seen tonight, the planning board did not see. That was not available to them that night. Right, so they did see a sketch plan that Mr. Gibson, but it was quite different from the plan that you see before you, even though that one if you've got the date and information, Mr. Sandy apparently drew that back in 2012. But Mr. Gibson did not present that to us. So the planning board didn't get to see that. It was a different plan. Again, the planning board will have to review the plan when the time comes. The one thing to consider is that, you're rezoning the property. You're not approving a plan. So, Mr. Gibson could go back and change this. He could use that. I do know that the planning board would look strongly at the idea of, yes, it needs a second entrance. And I've even spoke to Mr. Gibson about that earlier today, that, I can see where that could fit in, and the planning board will probably be very happy to see that, again, whether the lots are 30,000 square foot or R20 zone.
Quick question for you.
Yes, Mr. Allman.
You were showing pictures a second ago, and you were saying that the houses would be comparable to those that you had shown. What is that price range?
Better question for Mr. Gibson, but I think he's in the 225,000 range-ish. Yeah.
How many other housing developments? I know there's several others, but there was another one that's coming about right now. It's more so higher end. Is that still in the works?
Well, there's the one directly across that Terry Whitley's doing. I think that's going to be a little bit higher end there, and I think Mr. Helms's homes are kind of custom built, individual, and I think they're also a bit higher. There are 34 lots approved for that subdivision. They range from 31,000 square feet to, there's a couple of lots in there that are almost 2 acres, I think, or maybe a little more than 2 acres. So.
Mr. Chairman, I have one question.
Mr. Morgan?
I guess this is if we vote to approve RA20, can we put in that they must have a second driveway in our motion? Can we do that?
No, I guess the short answer probably no. You can certainly make any recommendation you want, and again, make any recommendation back to the planning board as far as, we think you ought to consider this, whatever that may be. So yes, you can certainly tell the planning board, we think when this comes before you, it ought to be 2 driveways, but the authority to approve the subdivision, the way the ordinance is written now, does rest with the planning board. I can pretty much assure you they're going to look at that, and the fire marshal's also going to look at this. Keep in mind, a subdivision gets reviewed, school system reviews it, the fire marshal reviews it, Mr. Morgan with the DOT, Mark Morgan, will review it, the district engineer. It goes, and even, Stanfield Utilities will review it, and obviously David Azale and the folks with Environmental Health Review. So they'll all take a look at the plans and point out, this is a good idea, this is a bad idea, you ought to change this, you ought to add that. So it'll go through that review process, and then, be brought before the planning board after that review is complete. And hopefully Mr. Gibson or whatever, the developer, is going to look at it and say, okay, we agree with all these suggestions, and they've incorporated them, and that's the plan that shows up for the planning board. Otherwise, the planning board will hear from me that says, well, I don't know, Mr. Azale recommended this, and he didn't include that. And they may look at the developer and say, well, you got to include that. So it still has that right. But if he meets all the points of the ordinance, the planning board basically has no choice but to approve it. But those recommendations can all be there.
Is the plat we got tonight just an unrecorded plat? Because
That's
it's
right.
got signatures on it, so I didn't.
It's
it just never got recorded at the courthouse.
Well, and it couldn't be unless it's, again, presented for the planning board
Okay.
for their blessing.
Matt,
Yes, sir.
you all had some questions about the size of the homes and other things. Do you want Mr. Gibson to readdress the board to answer some of those questions?
I think it was addressed in the letter. We
Okay.
just kind of
Okay,
overlooked it, I guess.
all right.
Commissioner Jordan, did you have a question?
Are you familiar with how many other lots or tracts of land near that area are likely to come up for development in the next decade?
course, get the crystal ball out, right? Yeah, you're right. Well, but if I had money to invest, there's some pretty good lots along there to do so. But I mean, there are obviously a variety of landowners with a variety of different purposes. I know Mr. Talley owns quite a few lots along that section. You know, he's got a farm use. But at some point he might look at it and say, well, I'd rather put houses there. Who knows? That's a wonderful crystal ball question. Notice that there are a fair amount of large parcels, maybe between River Road there and Polk Ford Road. You know, a lot of folks like that land out there. It's beautiful territory. Whether someone will step forward and say, well, let's extend a sewer line, because that's going to be the main thing to slow any of this development or sewer capacity.
How long did it take Mr. Reese to do the last development?
Well, think about economic downturn, but he started it in 2008, so it took.
It completed when?
It's just now filling up. We permitted a couple of houses last year.
Fine.
There, I know.
mean, again, 12 years?
Yes.
Decade, to build one relatively small chunk of dirt into some homes. It seems like, I mean, whether it's 15 or whether it's RA or R20, it's going to be developed. It seems like we have a local developer who cares. I realize I'm telling you more than asking, but that seems to care about the area and seems to do good work and seems to be well respected. And someone's going to develop there. That's not really a question of the if. It's just a matter of if it's tomorrow or next year. And his plans are within about 75 to 80% of the RA design requirements anyway, even though he's asking for R20. So, I mean, just don't see a reason to neglect, to say no to a guy that's had this much proven success in the area and done that good for the community.
I don't think this.
I guess I just don't see it.
Right. Just FYI, I don't know if you can see the plat in front of you there, but if you go down River Road, the second lot beyond this subdivision, heading east on the south side of the road, is Mr. Gibson's house. So he lives right there. Mr. Gibson.
Is there a requirement for a subdivision, like so many houses requires a turn-in lane off the main road, like coming off Rainford, with all these subdivisions coming right close together? Will there be any type of requirement?
Mr. Morgan could answer that best, but yes, there's Mark Morgan with the DOT. There are, once you hit a certain number of houses, then there's requirements for turn lanes to be constructed to enter the subdivision. And I think this will probably exceed that. Whether it be required on both Rennie Ford and River Road, I'm not sure. Again, the traffic count will probably play into that as well. But, yeah, once it meets a certain threshold, then turning lanes are required.
So you think he will hit that and require a turning lane? I mean,
if we're heading toward 50 homes, I think so. Yes, pretty sure. And I'm sorry, I don't know the exact rule on that.
Any other questions? What would the board like to do?
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Furr.
I'd like to make a recommendation that we approve the ZA 2003 Reese Gibson rezoning from RA to R20.
Motion by Commissioner Furr to approve ZA 2003 from RA to R20. Is there a second?
I'll second that, and I'm just going to comment that before we were going to do this, I planned on voting this down, but after hearing everything, the difference between RA and R20, I don't see, I mean, being 10, 12 houses is all we're talking about, a difference. The development's coming, and we're chomping at the bit now to get tax revenue in this county. So to turn down for 10 or 12 houses, I don't see. And I don't see 10 or 12 houses affecting the school system that much. So, yeah, a second.
Second by Commissioner Morgan. Is there any other discussion?
Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Barbie.
Yeah, I'd like to make a statement there. Yeah, 10 or 12 houses could be a big difference. Not just the houses, but the sewer Too many complications, traffic that's going to cost the taxpayers extra money. Due to that, I cannot go along with going from RA to R20.
Thank you, Commissioner Barbie. Any other comments?
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Lawhon.
what we're going to do if we vote and approve this rezoning, we basically will rezone any parcel of land for anybody that should come in here. Therefore, I'm going to vote against it.
Any other comment?
I guess mine is, like Commissioner Morgan, I was actually my mic's on. Like Commissioner Morgan, I was gonna vote against it at first. And then I was gonna vote for it, and then I wasn't sure, and now I'm gonna vote for it. But, I guess, I value Commissioner Lawhon's experience in position of lots. I tend to look at him sometimes for leadership, but I feel like in this instance, it's what this board is for. We rezone things all the time because they aren't part of that zoning. If that weren't the case, we wouldn't have rezoning. So everything is constantly getting rezoned. The purpose we had for that land 20 years ago isn't the purpose that makes sense for it today, or maybe the need changes and we can't forecast how the county is going to grow. Point is, I think it's a decent request the gentleman's asking. He's local, he lives there, he's built there, I think, all his life, and I don't think he's going to do something that's going to poorly represent himself or Stanfield or his county or us for making this decision. So I can vote for it in good conscience.
Mr. Chairman, I want to say one more thing, just with Bob. I'm going to emphasize that I would like to see a second driveway with this if it passes. Second entrance.
Any other comment?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. I want to, even though I'm going to vote against it, I understand that Mr. Gibson's an excellent man of character and a very good builder, and I know he builds good quality projects. My vote is a no, because we are opening up, in my opinion, a lot of other subdivisions that will come in here or come to the zoning board to request the same type zoning. And whoever wrote the rules to start with, they were probably pretty acceptable at that time. And it takes all sizes of houses, all sizes of lots to make a community. I have no problem with smaller houses, smaller lots. I live on a very small lot. I'm fortunate enough to live on Lake Tillery, but it's a very small lot. And they can and will be septic issues with small lots. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Lawhon.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Barbie.
I'd like to ditto Commissioner Lawhorn's opinion about we're opening up a can of worms on this thing. Got no problem, Mr. Gibson. I think he's a fine fellow, a good builder, but he's like me. There's no guarantee that it takes 10 or 12 years to build this development that he's going to be able to see it through, or me, either one, as far as that goes. And the tax base, we're worried about getting some more taxes for the county, yet we tend to turn around and give larger corporation developments huge tax breaks to come in and never consider about the small guy out here. So even though I'm going to vote no against this, it's not against Mr. Gibson per se. It's the fact that we're opening up a can of worms and not making things look as good as they should be.
Thank you. All those in favor, please say aye.
Mr. Chairman, before you vote, I would request that we have a roll call vote.
All right. You okay with just raising hands? Yeah. Okay.
I'll raise my hand, but
Well, unless you're driving. All those in favor, please raise your hand. All those opposed, please raise your hand.
my hand's raised.
Mike's got two hands up.
The motion is going to pass 4-3 by my math. That brings us to item 3 on tonight's agenda.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
would you allow us a 5-minute recess?
I will. I'll declare a 5-minute recess. All right, I'll declare us back in session. And we will go ahead with item number 3, the recommended budget presentation from County Manager Lucas.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. Certainly always a pleasure to bring you a recommended budget each year. This is sort of step 2 or step 3 in the process. You all have your budget retreat and departments build a request and the outside agencies, and then I make a recommendation and you go through the adopted process. In the book that you have this evening, you'll have a quick budget in brief that just really gives like a 2-page summary of the budget, really high level. There's also a transmittal letter that really goes into the details and more of a narrative description of a lot of the items in the budget. Then there's a couple spreadsheets that show you the dollars in the recommended budget versus the dollars in the previous year budget. It also has one of the spreadsheets has a column in there that shows you the county dollars, which is revenue that is sales tax or property tax versus money that we may get from fees and services, intergovernmental that's not county necessarily tax dollars. You'll also see the requested and the recommended enhancements on a spreadsheet. And then obviously after that, there's line item details for each department. And then the recommended fee schedule is in the back. And the recommended fee schedule is any of the changes that we're recommending are highlighted in yellow. So you can quickly look at those and know that that's a line that we're looking to recommending to change. In terms of just the bottom line of this budget, no tax rate, tax increase is recommended. If the board adopts this budget at 67 cents, this would be the 14th straight year that you all have had a budget at 67 cents, which in this region with the growth that's occurring, I think that says a lot for Stanley County and your commitment to maintaining a very reasonable tax base. I think that gives certainty to businesses. It certainly gives certainty to residents. It also, certainly helps the agricultural operations to have that sense of, hey, if we set up shop here and we do business here, we have some certainty in terms of what's going to happen with our taxes. Took a very conservative approach to this budget. You'll notice it's only a 1.3% increase over last year. It's less than $1 million increase from last year's budget to this year's budget. And really that's a result of what's going on in the county right now. I just don't know. We don't know. I don't have the sales tax from late March and April to be able to judge what that looks like. We've got projections, we've got analysis from the state to kind of help us with that in our association, but at the end of the day, we just don't know. I mean, if you've been to Lowe's for the last month, you'd think, hey, there's going to be, sales tax may not be bad, but people aren't in restaurants, people aren't in hotels. They're not traveling, and so some of our sales tax is based on what's happening in other places in the state, not just here. That I believe that's going to be down, and I think it's going to be down fairly significantly. But I won't really know until June 1st what the last month really looks, or April and March really look like, because the way the lag is in sales tax, you go to the store in March, we don't really pick it up, and I don't see what's that impact of that until June. It's almost a 3-month lag. So we took a pretty conservative approach. There is an increase in education funding. There's an increase in public safety funding for vehicles, technology, and I'm also recommending additional resources to make sure we can retain our talent that we have here and that works so hard. If you look at what was requested versus recommended, if I was to bring forth the requested budget to you and say, this is what I recommend, it would require almost a 15-cent tax increase. So about a $7.35 million difference from what was requested by department heads and outside agencies, schools, The schools alone asked for about a $3.3 million increase in their budget, which if you were to approve the school's budget request, it would be about 6.6 cents of an increase in taxes. Based on about $500,000 is what you get from 1 cent. So you'd almost $3.3 million more from last year. You're looking at about 6.6 cents. So, overall, when you look at all the departments plus the schools, almost $7.5 million more than what's being recommended. Just a quick summary. You can kind of see, over the multi-year budgets, we've stair-stepped. Certainly, this is sort of similar to 17-18 and 18-19, where in that year we did grow the budget by a little more than $1 million. This time around, I'm recommending it be a little less than $1 million. But we've definitely grown the budget. We're just sort of pumping the brakes a little bit this year in terms of ongoing expenses. Not necessarily recommending any new buildings at this point that we are going to need county money to help pay for. Not necessarily recommending any new positions that we need county money to pay for, with one small exception to that. And so, and I'll talk to that in a minute. But about a 1.3% increase, pretty consistent with if you look at the CPI, the Consumer Price Index, at 1.3. Slightly higher than the Consumer Price Index from this time last year, but not by a whole lot. Less than, I think is about, maybe a 1/10 of a percentage point. And so that budget of $69.5 million requires about $48.5 million in county dollars. Our assessed valuation went up about 3%, which is very good. That's a little higher than last year. I think our assessed valuation went up 2.8% last year, 2.7, 2.8. So we're still seeing a growth in our tax base. My concern, though, is next year, as businesses decide not to necessarily replace a piece of equipment because their revenues haven't been as good, what impact is that going to have? Because we won't see next year's until what they list January 1st. So that, I do have some concerns that we may not see it grow as much, although next year is a revaluation year. So that'll adds a different twist. The fund balance that I'm recommending to appropriate is about $1.68 million. That's a decrease of 38% from last year's budget. Recommending a 1.5% increase to the school's operating or current expense, $171,800. Recommending that they continue to get $500,000 from the Article 44 sales tax. That's different than Article 46, which is the quarter-cent sales tax. Of the quarter-cent sales tax, I'm recommending that the schools get $1,171,800 in operating. I'm also recommending they get another $125,000 from what I believe we will excess revenue from 46. And 46 is that quarter-cent sales tax that we recently passed. I'm recommending that they get a portion of what we think we'll bring in this year that was more than what we budgeted. And then the other portion would go to the community college for the design of that trades facility. I'm recommending that the teacher supplement grant stay the same at $314,220, and that their capital outlay be close to $3 million at $2.945 million. That $2.945 million includes it actually includes roughly $400,000, a little over $400,000 in revenue that's been built up from Article 42 and 40 and 46 from previous years. And we're bound to give the schools we bring in 40 and 42. We don't have to give it in that specific year, but we're bound to give that to them. We have excess revenue that we keep track of, Finance and I, and so we know from year to year what we bring in versus what we've appropriated. And we've got around $300,000 that we can appropriate from Article 40 and 42 that we brought in previous years. And so that makes up $305,000 of that 2.9, and then another $100,000 is from the Article 46 that we're going to bring in this year. I'm recommending we set aside $500,000 for the design of the trades facility. That will take majority of next fiscal year to do that trades facility, so that allows us to design it. I'm not, that $500,000, 400,000 of that's already in the community college budget. I'm just moving it from their current expense. They used that for one-time items this year up there. I'm just recommending it be reallocated for the purpose of that design, plus an additional 100,000 for that. I'm hopeful and optimistic that that $500,000 will cover the cost of that. If you figure design's usually about 10%, but that's usually design and construction administration, the whole works, which I don't envision us starting construction next fiscal year. I mean, it's going to take 6 to 8 to 9 months to design this thing. I envision that being more beginning if we decide, and that'll give us time to figure out where our quarter-cent sales tax is too, and do we still have enough money to continue to give the school systems $1 million+ a year, plus having, you know, $600,000 or so to be able to afford the debt service on a $7 to $8 million trades facility. So, but if we design it, even if we don't go forward with it next fiscal year, we still have the design. We already have it. And then, you know, it's kind of like the Ag Center or the livestock arena. Even though we haven't gone forward with that, we own the design. Anytime we want it, we can put it back out to bid. I mean, it's been designed, it's ready to go. Construction documents are drawn. So it's not a waste of money. You've spent it, you own it, you have it, and at point in time that you say, hey, we can afford this, you can move forward with it. Just a quick summary of where our money goes. 84% of the money in our budget goes to mandated services: jail, debt, DSS, EMS, sheriff, and public education. Almost 37% of the county's budget goes to education. So, you know, when folks ask me, where's my money go? Where's my taxpayer dollars going? Well, $1 out of every, you know, $30 out of every 100 is going to the school system, basically. Schools and community college, but primarily the school system. So when folks ask you that question, you know, it's really easy to say, yeah, $30 every 100 you pay is going essentially to the schools. If you look at human capital, I am recommending a 2% COLA for our employees. Our employees have worked hard through this recession. They've been here. They've been dedicated, and I believe that we need to continue to make sure we have that COLA to make sure that we can retain our employees. You can see what the board's been able to do with our voluntary turnover rate by you investing in our employees each year with COLAs. You know, our turnover rate was going up, and then all of a sudden, the last few years, it's starting to come back down. And I think that's a good thing, especially if you look at that where it's gone down. It's actually gone down in an economy that was pretty robust. And people had opportunities to go other places, and they've decided to stay because I think you all have invested in our employees and brought up, when we do that COLA, not only does it move everybody who's here, it also brings up our starting salaries and our midpoint and our end of the range. So it makes it easier to attract talent to come into our organization. I'm not recommending any merit funding this year just because I couldn't figure out how to afford both the COLA and the merit. And the COLA not only helps our existing employees, but it also moves our pay scale, so it helps us recruit and retain employees. I am recommending one new position in the dental, a hygienist. There's such a volume and a need for a hygienist there. They pay for those through Medicaid and Medicare and private insurance. It doesn't cost the county taxpayer out of your tax dollars. Obviously, you know, people pay into Medicare and Medicaid. I get that. But out of our own tax dollars, our dental clinic doesn't cost tax dollars or sales tax dollars for our citizens. So I am recommending that position, and it'll pay for itself. We will bring in enough revenue from seeing additional patients with that hygienist. We also have 2 positions that the county board accepted a grant for a community paramedic program to help with the whole opioid issue. And that the quantitative issue, the information that I'm getting from that is that's been, you know, very well recepted in the community, and it's working pretty well. That grant funding will run out very close to the end of the fiscal year. It's going to require about a little over $29,000 to finish it out for fiscal year 2021. I'm recommending we go ahead and do that, but I've put EMS on notice that, hey, we need to really work with the hospital and some others to find a more sustainable funding source, because obviously a full year of that program is a lot more than $30,000. But, you know, I hate to end that program with a month or 2 to go in the fiscal year if we've done it that long. Let's just, you know, I'm going to go ahead and get this. My recommendation is go ahead and fund it through the full 12 months, and then, you know, EMS knows they've got 12 months to work on getting a more sustainable funding source, or at least beginning to cost share that some way with the county so we can keep that program if the data suggests that we need to. I am recommending a new classification scale for the sheriff's deputies. Right now, we basically have 2 tiers, and there's a deputy and a deputy 2, deputy 1, deputy 2. So there's not a whole lot of movement for them. I mean, unless they can get to sergeant. And in you know, other positions like in the telecommunicators, we have T1, T2, T3. You know, in the EMS, we have some variation in terms of paramedics. So with the sheriff's office, I'm recommending that we go from that deputy 1, deputy 2 to a classification of deputy, senior deputy, and master deputy, and then sergeant. And that's not recommended to have a fiscal impact beyond $800 in our budget next year. But I do think that creates another tier for people to move along that range that will help the sheriff recruit and retain deputies more easily by having that third sort of succession within our classification scale. And like I said, that's not going to, even though folks may move into them classifications, they're already well into that range in terms of salary, so they're not necessarily going to get a pay increase. They're just going to move up into a different classification grade. With the exception of, I think, 1 employee would move, and it's going to be around an 800-hour impact. I'm recommending that we continue to do our wellness clinic through the public health, and that if we so meet it, that we would have our gain sharing program in place again for next fiscal year as well. Efficiency, productivity recommendations. I am recommending that the Albemarle library close at 7 o'clock on Monday through Thursday. Currently, it's open till 8. Locust closes at 7. One of the other branches closes at 7. The data just doesn't suggest that we need to keep that library open to 8 o'clock. It saves us about 124 hours of part-time a year. It aligns with all the other branches. So, you know, if they close at Locust at 7, Albemarle's closed at 7. They're all closed at 7 o'clock. And like I say, the data just doesn't suggest being open for that additional hour. That there's times that they're open for an hour and there's nobody there. And that happens quite often, or there may be 1 or 2 people there. My guess is if they know the hours are till 7, they'll get there and they'll take care of their business. And I'm also recommending that we reposition our utility billing and customer service under the supervision of our central permitting director. I just feel like central permitting is already doing the revenue and the billing collection for environmental health. They do it for inspections. They do it for planning and zoning. And I feel like they can, the accountability will be better if all that, even in the utility functions and that customer service is under the central permitting as well. And so I'm recommending that. And I think that will also help us provide some greater opportunities for cross-training. It'll also enable utilities admin, our utilities director, to focus really on operations and our capital projects. We have some really significant capital projects going on with our utilities, whether it's the West Stanley treatment plant renovation or the Phase 4 Water and Sewer Authority thing. And unfortunately, I think the billing and the revenue and the customer service sort of just gets set aside and we don't focus there. And I believe that putting it in an area in our government where that we already have that focus on customer service, we already have that focus on revenue and billing and a very consistent process, I just think it's going to enhance what we can do from a customer service perspective and from a billing and a revenue collection perspective through our utilities. Just some major budgetary expenditure changes. You can see the impact of a COLA, what the impact of the new ambulance, new EMS base has on this year's budget, which that base should open up in August, September timeframe. The new base over on Hillco, and the additional ambulances from last year. The increase in the mandated share that the county has to pay for retirement through the local government employees retirement system. Just that alone, I think it's going up a little over 2 percentage points, is a $322,000 hit to our budget. And that's just the fact that you have baby boomers retiring. More people retiring. Unfortunately, you don't have enough people coming into the workforce to take, or less positions than we had. And so all that's doing is shifting that to say, okay, we got to get more money into the local government retirement system to be able to pay for the pensions of the folks that are retiring. And that's not just our employees that are retired. It's the local government employees retirement system. And unfortunately, next year they're talking about another 2% increase. And so this isn't getting any better. It's only going to continue to go up. The increase for schools, there was some miscalculations for whatever reason in some spreadsheets for the jail and the 911 salaries last year. And so we underfunded those. And so we're making that correction. And so that's causing the budget to go up some too. We're pulling back some one-time money. If you remember last year, we gave the school system $1 million from the Alcoa settlement. That was one-time money. We also gave them some additional money in one-time funds out of 40 and 42 that, was one-time money that, we pulled that back out. I'm decreasing our facilities maintenance and also not recommending any merit this year. That's about $150,000 savings from this year's budget. If you look at capital outlay, and these are requests that were in the $0 to $9,900 or $1,000 to $999. About $130,000 requested, $81,000 recommended. And then if you look at those things, 10,000 and greater, about 2.2 requested and recommending 1.192. The key thing that I would say there's some of the things in that 1.192 I'm recommending to finance. So the dollar amount is bigger, but the actual budget impact isn't that big because we'll take on that debt service and then we will pay those. And like the sheriff's vehicles, I got sheriff's vehicles that are coming off of debt service and then I'll have these coming on. So we have a rotation. So I really don't necessarily incur more debt on an annual basis. It just sort of rotates. And the same with the ambulances. Our fund balance appropriated will decrease by 1.3 percentage points based on the recommended budget. Sales tax is a little misleading. It says, we're going into this, kind of quasi-recession or whatever. How are you recommending a 1 percentage point increase? Some of that is that money that's reserved from 40 and 42 and 46 that we have in reserve that I'm putting into the budget. And so it makes that number inflated. But I will also say we were pretty conservative on our revenue estimates this year. I still believe we'll hit our revenue estimates on sales tax this year. I think we were pretty conservative, we always are, which helps us build a fund balance, which helps us put in a position to be able to pay for capital projects and do other things the board wants to do. So I think, generally, because of our conservative nature and how we budget, I think we're going to be in a little better position next year with our sales tax. Ad valorem property tax revenue would increase by almost a percentage point. If you look at ad valorem revenue, sales tax, intergovernmental, which is the money we get from federal and state, and fees for service like ambulances and dental clinic and things like that, that makes up about 93% of our revenue. We had some outside agency requests, Convention and Visitors Bureau. They've asked for additional funding, and that's primarily to make up that where we have that sort of heads in beds grant, and we put out, I think, $10,000 last year for that fishing tournament. So we're just putting that $10,000 back into that pot to build that back. The Sports Hall of Fame also asked for $10,000. They have cases here that they want to digitize that and put a digital display actually at the History Center. They asked us to pay $10,000 to pay for that, to digitize the collection. And the thought process there is that once they digitize it, they'll have the cost of digitizing the records moving forward, but they won't have to buy new cases and they won't have to have more space. They'll just be able to I didn't recommend it. It's $10,000. The board may feel as we go through this process that it's just worth it to do it. I'll let you make that decision. To me, I feel like that's a nonprofit that's in the community. If it's that important to folks in this community, there's people in this community that will find $10,000 to pay for that instead of taking it out of taxpayer money. Recommended fee changes. I am recommending that the household solid waste fee go up $5 to $90. And I know we've increased that every year, and people say, gosh, it's going up. I can tell you right now, I pay $240 a year for garbage collection through the city of Albemarle. So $90 is still cheap. And I told someone the other day, I would trade somebody my $240 payment annually if I could pay the $90 to just take my trash to the Bethany Road convenience site. I'd do that in a heartbeat. I only get to put the trash that will fit into that green bucket every week out there. If you set it on the side, they're not picking it up. If I could go to the Bethany, I could put 3 or 4 bags in my truck and take it up there, and later in the week if I had 2 or 3 more bags, I could take it up there. And so we had that $90 is still a bargain as far as I'm concerned. If you look at what people pay in the municipalities for trash and recycling, the problem is recycling. Our recycling charges will go up $30,000 next year. And that's just because that it's not a commodity and China's not taking as what they used to. There's actually counties who have said we're not recycling anymore. They don't even collect recycling anymore. They're just gotten out of the businesses. They've said it's too expensive. We're just not going to do it. And so, it's trash. What'll end up happening is people put that in their trash, and it's going to end up in the landfill. But they just can't afford the cost. And what'll likely happen is their hauling costs for their trash will go up because they got that recycling in there. But the cost of recycling it's still cheaper for us to recycle, but it is going up. And so for us to continue to do that folks have to know that there's a cost there. Again, I still think it's a bargain at $90 a year. There are some other fee changes. EMS, dental clinic, environmental health department, planning, zoning, inspections, and SCUSA I would call them fairly minor fee increases recommended. They're all highlighted in that fee schedule in yellow. West Stanley Fire District has asked for a 5-cent increase in their tax rate to go from 10 to 15. We sort of knew this last year when one of the fire districts approached us about going from 10 to 15 that this was likely to begin to happen. That other districts would then follow suit and ask for that increase. The same happened when I got here in 2008. One of the districts went to 10, and then over the next 5 or 6 years, all the other districts started going towards 10 cents. So I think this will be, last year you saw one, this year you got one. I think you'll begin to see other districts moving towards at least higher than 10 cents. And admittedly, the cost of vehicles, the cost of equipment is all going up. I mean, it's expensive to have a fire service. They're looking at this 5 cents to begin to replace a rescue unit, to start the planning for a third station. I think it was actually mentioned tonight where that may be. Adding a training facility, like fitness and training facility to their Station 1. Planning in addition to Station 1, which Station 1, I believe, I'm not mistaken, is the one right there on, as you go towards Stanfield, once you turn off of on 200, and it's right there on the right-hand side, soon after you turn on 200 off of 2427. And then just the general replacement of outdated equipment and fire apparatus. And obviously the board can have a discussion once we move towards the adopted budget of whether or not that 5 cents, you want to do that. Our enterprise funds, our utilities directors asked for a 3% rate increase. I'm recommending that 3% increase. The city of Albemarle, their manager just recommended a 6% increase. Keep in mind, we buy our water from Albemarle. They treat our sewer. So when they go up 6%, we can absorb some of that, but it's difficult. Norwood will also increase their rates. I don't know that number yet, but that's part of their multi-year. 2 or 3 years ago, they're going through a multi-year increase. The 3% water rate increase will move our rate to the base rate of 2,000 gallons to $24.91. The sewer base rate would go to $8.86. And our base rate for wholesale at West Stanley would go to $5.22 per thousand. That's all 3% increases. You can see the increases to the respective budgets. Stanley Utilities budget would actually go down about $13,000 from this year. I am recommending some equipment, a small excavator to help them with their water and sewer hookups to be more efficient, and a small dump truck to replace an existing small dump truck. I'm recommending those be financed and then paid for in future years. But both of those pieces of equipment in our utilities budget really do need some attention. On the enterprise fund, the airport's budget would go down around 6%. And the general fund goes down about $25,000. I did include leasing a new Airfield service truck for them. Their Airfield service truck is old and outdated, and they need a new one. And so I'm recommending that we lease a new heavy-duty pickup truck for that purpose. And then our 911 budget is going down a little bit. No fund balance is appropriated. About $43,000 of it can be used to help offset the radio system debt service. So just in brief, no tax rate increase. If your board adopts that, it would be the 14th consecutive year. It does continue to invest in education and workforce development. You can see the increase for schools, some additional funding for the trades facility design, roughly $3 million for capital outlay for the school system. Ambulance replacements in here, I'm recommending 2 ambulances be replaced. They requested 3. I just didn't feel like we could take on that additional debt, given the uncertainty of next year. There's several sheriff's patrol vehicles, some additional money for drug enforcement, some additional money for jail programs, additional money for some 911 technology investments, and then funding for a respirator fit test system replacement to assist our volunteer fire departments and the fire marshal with making sure they get their CS, the SCABA or yes, making sure that those things fit properly. So very conservative budget, about 1.3% increase. It's essentially status quo in a lot of respects. And I did do something for employee retention by recommending a 2% COLA. We're looking at a budget public hearing at your next regular meeting, which will be June 8th. Budget workshops, you'll need to identify those at the June 8th meeting. We're recommending the 15th and 18th. And we're recommending that you set the tentative adoption date for the Tuesday, the June 23rd. And I will stop there and answer any questions that you may have regarding the recommended budget.
Are there any questions from commissioners on the recommended budget at this time? All right.
Okay, very good.
Brings us to item 4, the consent agenda. There's no changes to the consent agenda. What would the board like to do?
Make a motion to approve.
Motion to approve from Commissioner Allman. Is there a second? Second. A second from Commissioner Morgan. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Any opposed, no. Motion carries 7-0. Anybody for public comment? Was there anybody left back there? Do we know? Is there anybody left back there?
Let me text Jenny.
I
Hold
didn't,
on.
my
Sorry.
phone is dead, so I didn't get a text from Jenny. She usually texts.
Hold on, because it's a little bit of delay. She probably just heard you say that, and now I'm going to send this. So it's about when I was walking back there to get folks, you guys were still talking, so and you were done when I left here.
It's all right. I'll just go ahead and start with board comment, and we'll let any public speak if they do.
There's no public comment. There's no public comment.
All right. Commissioner Lawhon, we'll start with you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to give a COVID-19 update. I've been getting them just like you all have, but I was real pleased with the one we got today. And the reason I'm real pleased with it, there's 4 active cases in Stanley County. 4. 0 of those are hospitalized. So that means those 4 citizens are quarantined at home or somewhere other than the hospital. And I'm pleased to say that 22 people have recovered out of a total of 30 confirmed cases. I'm sad to say that we have lost 4 citizens to COVID-19. But I think in Stanley County, I think it's reflective. Just like other areas in the country, I do think the suppression or the stay-at-home orders have paid off. Social distancing's paid off. But I don't know about y'all, but I'm ready to get this thing reopened. And I don't think you can paint Stanley County as a typical county in North Carolina. There's some counties that have lots of COVID cases. But in general, North Carolina's numbers are coming down. And I don't know about y'all, but I really enjoyed Mother's Day yesterday, and I'm not a mother. And the reason I enjoyed it was because I got to visit with my children and grandchildren again, because the rules now allow for 10 people, social distance. I hate to say it, but I broke it because I hugged my grandchildren. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Lawhon. Commissioner Jordan?
In that regard, I broke the rule the other day. I hugged my mother's neck the first time in 3 months, and I think she about cried. I can't wait for that part to be over and things to get back to normal, or at least to the new normal. Nothing big on my end. I want to congratulate the amazing group of people I've been working with. Let me be clear, that have been doing the work. because I've been a mouthpiece. But these amazing people that have been sewing masks and doing sanitizer and stuff, you know, it occurred to me today, they have hand sewn 2,750 masks. 2,700. I happened to see it as a number on an Excel spreadsheet in 2730 something, and it didn't really. And I stopped and thought about it. I looked back over my shoulder and thought, there's 400 they did like the other day that had been piling up on the bench. That's a lot of masks for volunteers to be hand sewn, go pick it up, come back, cut it, wash it, dry it, deliver it, have it sewed, have elastic put in it, have a filter cut, bring it back to my house, pick it back up, and then deliver it to somebody. Almost 3,000 times. That's crazy. In hand sanitizer, we have that big donation from Corning. We still got plenty left, so I've got, thanks to our volunteers, 700 little small 2-ounce bottles left. If anyone in the county still needs some, there's no charge. I'll just let us know, and we'll get it to you. Either you can come get it, or you can pick it up at the YMCA. I'll make arrangements one way or the other until that supply is gone. But that's it for me. Thank you guys in the county for all your hard work to get us through this as good as you have.
Thank you, Commissioner Jordan. Commissioner Barbie, do you have any comment tonight?
No, but I don't have COVID-19. I'm just quarantined for another reason. So.
Okay.
Without me.
Thank you. Commissioner Furr.
I have nothing this time.
Commissioner Allman.
Just like to congratulate the board. I think it's really something awesome that we've kept our tax rate the same amount, and I think our citizens really appreciate it. I think it speaks to the consistency of our community. It's really good. I'd also like to ditto what Mr. Lawhon said. I think it's time to reopen North Carolina, and I'm starting to question some of the motives of our leaders in Raleigh, specifically the governor, of not reopening North Carolina. So I think it's imperative that we reopen very, very soon.
Commissioner Morgan.
I'll ditto what Commissioner Lawhon and Commissioner Allman just said. It's time to reopen. I was just in South Carolina all this weekend. Finally got to eat in a restaurant. Everything went smooth. In fact, today they're opening up. They can dine in, sit in an actual restaurant now. This weekend we had to sit on the patio or deck, but it's beyond time. I think Tennessee just is doing the same thing as South Carolina. And I hope all the mothers out there had a great Mother's Day. That's it.
Thank you. I actually have no comment tonight. I'd like to thank everybody. I guess I do have a comment. I'd like to thank everybody that's been helping through this, county staff. The COVID has really put a stressor on our health department, kind of a different way to do business. I don't like the term new way to do business because I don't think it will be. I think this is going to be short-lived, and maybe I'm just optimistic, but I'd rather be optimistic. So, they're just working through this and making good headway and keeping us all healthy and safe. So I'd like to say I appreciate the work they're doing, and as well as all our doctors and things like that outside of our health department. But other than that, there's no other comment or any other business. We'll seek a motion to adjourn. Motion from Commissioner Morgan. Is there a second? Second from Commissioner Jordan. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed, no. Motion carries 7-0. Have a good night, Mike.